Welcome to Metasploit Minute, the breakdown on breaking in. I'm your host, Rob Fuller, but you can call me Mubix. In this minute, we're going to be setting up the latest version of Metasploit framework directly from GitHub repository on OSX. So this is a lot like what we did for GitHub version on Kali, except for there's a bunch of different little tweaks and things that we have to do on OSX to get it going right. So what we have right here, let me show you on the screen. What we have here is a list of to-dos, and this came directly again from Carlos Perez's awesome tutorials on installing Metasploit. This one particularly is for Lion and Mountain Lion. There's a bunch of tweaks in here that we needed to do for Mountain Lion to get it working on our install. So I'm going to go through a bunch of the things, but we've already covered a lot. So I'll just go through some of the tweaks that I had to do during the installation. Now, you can use either brew install or Mac ports, and I find that brew is a lot better at getting the things that you need for Metasploit to work. Now there are, this is the Vim Emacs fight all over again. So let's use brew in this instance. So let's go over and talk through some of the changes. All right, first is the brew install. Ruby, this whole thing, and you can find that whole thing at brew.sh. So once we have that going, that installs brew. It takes a few seconds. Then what you want to do is get these two things into your bash profile, and we're going to echo those in right now. So those two, and let me point out something in particular. Those two paths help us with getting Ruby and the gems particularly working and running from whatever directory we need to have them in. So in this particular directory, 193.193.448, that's the install of Ruby that I installed here on this OSX. It might be a little different from what you're going to install. So once we do that, we install the homebrew version of 193, and we're going to just skip that because we already did that, as well as the Postgres install. So those should complete without fail from brew, and once you have those installed, you'll have Postgres and Ruby working. What you want to do, just to make sure that everything's going all right, is you want to do ruby-v. If ruby-v shows you 187, then you have not restarted your terminal. This echo into the path puts it in the bash profile folder or file. You might have to restart your terminal to get that to work correctly. And if that doesn't work, then you have something wrong with your install. After that, we make our directories for Postgres to automatically start. Now, you don't have to do this step. This particular step is only there if you want Postgres to start automatically. The next thing is to copy in that plist into that launch agents, which will start automatically whenever you log in. You start Postgres now manually because you're not without having to log out and log back in. And you create your users just like we did with the GitHub install. It's not much different. This is the bundle or the gem installs, just like we did on GitHub. The only difference here is we're installing bundler instead of bundle, and we're installing PG and SQLite and some of the other packages that aren't there by default on OSX, where they are on Kali. And then we get clone, and we've already done this. I just cloned it into documents. Metasploit, we already have all of the files and folders that we already know about in there, and we bundle install just like we did before. Now I've already done that to save some time, so that's already in there, and it just says it's using it, it's ready to go. If we do MSF console now, what's going to happen is it's going to start up Metasploit, but we haven't synced it up with our database. And let's see if you remember, where do we put that database file? That's right, in our home directory, cd.msf4, home directory, .msf4. So that database file, exactly how we did it before. Now, we have gone over these installations for GitHub and for OSX installation, giving the password of MSF. While Postgres is only listed on 127.0.0.1, do you really want to make it that easy for anyone who pops your box to get into all of your exploit database? Probably not. So you definitely want to change that password and use something else. But in this demo, we're going to use MSF. So let's get back to our Metasploit directory, start up MSF console. Now, One thing I want to give as a tip, just as we're going through this, and we'll give more tips along the way, is almost everything inside of Metasploit has a -h. If you don't know what this command does, use -h. It'll help out. Uppercase L, I like to use. It uses real readline, which is the system readline instead of Ruby's readline. It's just a lot better when you're trying to backspace and copy and a bunch of other things that make life a little hard if you're doing screen and stuff like that. So we start MSF console -uppercase L. Just as an overview, we went through a bunch of steps ahead of time to make sure that this, since we're doing a lot of the same steps we would be a lot faster. And look at that. We have our little bunny. All right, that's it. So tell me what you think. Hit me up at msf@hack5.org. Stay tuned to metasploitminute.com for more shows like these. Until then, I'm Mubix, and I'll be hacking till the cows come home. This Metasploit Minute is brought to you by Hack5 and viewers like you. Support us directly at hakshop.com.